Hey guys, what's going on? Tyrauku here, back again with another raid video. So yesterday on my community post or community tab on YouTube, I asked you guys what are some underrated champions that you found use for. Because I don't really love making videos on champions who've been talked about a ton. I mean, granted, raid has been out for what, 2 years, a little over 2 years now. A lot of these champions who were originally released are still pretty good. So, I mean, it's kind of difficult to not talk about them, but I wanted to try to mix it up, do something a little unique. Now, my idea was that I would see a new champion, I'd build them out and test them out. But after looking at some of the responses, I came to notice that a lot of them were from the Undead faction. The Undead faction crypt was open yesterday. So any of these champions we talk about today will probably be pretty good in Undead Faction Wars. With that said, Lydia is going to be probably moved up here fairly soon once the Shadowkin faction opens. So now is a good time to push these crypts, which we got a week and a day until Undead opens up again. But hey, these are some champions maybe you can start working on building, checking out, maybe investing in. And if you guys would like for me to build some of them as well, I can definitely try to build them to put into my Undead Faction War team as well. Because honestly, my Undead team is really just throwing some of these champions in here, these Legos, and just hoping they make it through. I try to farm a stage I can do in auto. I don't do stage 21, so I'm definitely interested in trying to build some of these champs and maybe go through it with like the minimal amount of investment possible. So trying to keep some of these champions at level 50, not necessarily take them to level 60. So first off, let's go ahead and go with the first person. So Oh Yeah said, dealing with stage 19 of Undead Hordes, my CC, which is crowd control, stun, fear, provoke, all that kind of good stuff, is awesome, but damage is bad. Apparently the 5 Vrasks all have 100% crit rate, even though it says 15%. Because of this, Corpse Collector is now a saint. So Corpse Collector, I'm not even gonna lie, is a champion who I overlooked, well, until I seen that post, okay? So maybe some of you guys are in the same boat. Corpse Collector, I was thinking was part of the Rosin Fusion. I could be wrong, but I'm thinking she was. Obviously, I've already done the Rosin Fusion, so I forget which champions were part of it. But this A2 ability is what he's talking about. So Vrasks, when they attack, they heal. This A2 ability attacks all enemies, which obviously has the benefit. If you threw her in a stun set, she'd be getting some benefit from that as well. She'd be stunning plus this heal reduction, which is the big thing he's talking about. 75% chance when fully booked goes up to 100% chance of placing a 100% heal reduction debuff and a 50% decreased accuracy debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. So if you were to put her in a stun set, you get the stun CC benefits and you get the heal reduction benefits as well, that the Vrask would basically be nothing. So the Vrask wouldn't be doing their heals from their A1 abilities. Definitely helps you get through the waves a lot quicker. This A3 ability also pairs very well with the stun set. Stun sets, you'll learn very quickly, are probably the most impactful set when it comes to Faction Wars, okay? So Faction Wars, get a good stun set, get a few good stun sets, and just swap them between your different factions you're working on, and it'll help you out so much, especially on these champions who attack 3 times at random or attack all enemies. Granted, it's better if it's on an A1 ability, so it's more consistent and more frequent, but on these A2 abilities and A3s, if you do decide to book them, which I don't know for sure if you had it booked, obviously if you get it fully booked, it will be a 100% chance. If you don't book it, you may just have to try it out a few more times. RNG is your friend in Faction Wars. Once you run it so many times, eventually you hopefully land enough debuffs where it actually works out for you. But if you get this book, it's gonna be a 3-turn cooldown on an AoE ability, not bad at all. So the first one was Corpse Collector. The second one is going to be Grinner. So Grinner is actually a champion I used a lot when I was first starting in the arena. A champion who I think you see pretty often early game in the arena, but for Jumer Cusco, he's using him in Faction War as well and just general progression. Actually, he didn't mention Faction Wars, but Faction Wars is a solid place. Probably more so early Faction Wars, but the way he has him built could definitely make sense in later stages of Faction Wars for his crowd control with his A2 AoE stun set, same thing like I mentioned. One of the best progression rares, his kit is very sweet, runs him in stun set and fearsome presence for added boost to his impressive kit. Look down here at Grinner, I believe his A2 had like a 4.2 multiplier. Now you're probably not going to gear him for damage. You got to build him with attack. His base attack is 936. Not that great, but he does have a res. Now when you're early game, you have Shaman who has a res. That's decent, okay? Nobody really uses Shaman, let's be honest. But he also brings the benefit of an A1 ability, having a 25% chance of placing a 50% increased attack buff on all allies. This booking doesn't do anything to increase that chance, but if you attack, maybe you don't have a Gore Grab or you don't have a champion who can do increased attack yet, Grinner is definitely a good option for your arena. Maybe even your arena defense, good option in general, decent A2 ability. has a 20% chance of removing one random buff from each target. He's a rare champion, so he's relatively easy to book. This books down to a 3-turn cooldown, so if you have him in that stun set, then he's going to be having more turns to go, having chances with the AoE to basically apply that stun. If you throw the Fearsome Presence Mastery on him, then you're getting that additional, which if you don't know what Fearsome Presence Mastery is, that's the mastery right down here, which increases the chance of placing stun, sleep, freeze, fear, true fear, or provoke from skills or artifacts by 5%. So that stun set is now going to have a higher chance of actually placing that stun, helping you get through the waves and anything like that as you're progressing through the game. Now, the third one that was submitted was by Tequila. So I finished Undead Faction with 3 stars today. So congrats, that's awesome, huge. With level 50 Seducer as his leader, or his or her leader in his team. He is not that bad. Okay, so Seducer is a champion who honestly, I didn't invest in, okay? I didn't really need a Seducer, but Seducer is a solid champion. Leader aura, 25% HP in all battles. This is a very high aura, especially for a rare champion. So very, very solid there. Now, unfortunately, this is only available when Temptress is on the same team. I don't see a ton of use in Temptress, so those probably aren't gonna work up very well. Honestly, I wish they had some better synergy abilities in the game, but it just seems like so many of them are kind of just meh at the best. Now, Cupidus and Venus are very good, but they're both legendaries, right? Maybe Vlad and Constantine end up being decent together. Who knows? I tried them a little on test server, but I don't really know. Either way, his A2 ability places a 30% increased defense, which is the weak version of it, but hey, 30% increased defense. If you get nothing better, very, very solid. Places it on all allies for 2 turns and a block debuffs on all allies for 2 turns. If you don't have a champion who can do block debuffs, this is a very, very useful ability to have for sure. A2 ability, attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing 25% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns, books up to 100% chance, rare champion once again, easily to book that. A1 ability, 30% chance of placing a sleep debuff for 1 turn, books up to 45% chance, I do believe. So definitely, if you have rare books, definitely worth booking this champion out, investing in them. But like I said, when it comes to like epic champions, if you don't have to book them, try not to book them. Try to use them not being booked, because honestly, a lot of these champions you're using for Faction Wars probably won't have much longevity past Faction Wars, okay? Some of these like more specific champions, they'll be very good in their role for Faction Wars, help you get through that, help you get closer to Lydia. But after that, you may not even use them ever again. So you don't really want to invest books into a champion who you're not going to be using consistently down the road. But it's all up to you. Depends on how your account looks as far as the booking goes, because books are difficult to come by. Difficult to come by for sure. This is a 3-turn cooldown, same thing. You see in a consistent theme here. Stun sets, or even provoke sets. Good crowd control sets work so well in these champions, okay? So Seducer as the leader doesn't need to be level 60. He brings decent support, brings decent control from his A2 ability. If you don't have anything better for decreased attack, a decent, solid option, especially according to Tequila, who said that they finished Undead Faction Wars with 3 stars today. So definitely a champion to be looking out for. Now, I was going to make this just a top 5 list, but then I realized there was actually quite a few more champions I wanted to talk about. I asked in the clan chat, what were some champions people thought were undervalued in the Undead faction specifically, and we had a build shared by Quit Motorsports. So thank you, Quit. I appreciate you for sharing this. But Balthus Druglord, honestly, I don't even know his kit that well. I said that in the chat, I don't really know where he's used at, but apparently he's helped Quit get through Faction Wars, and maybe he could help you guys as well. I did notice something interesting as well. So this is his build. I'll show you guys this real quick if you guys are interested in seeing it. These are the stats, all perception gear, decent speed. He said he's not booked and he is not mastered, okay? So if this helps, unbooked, only 5% crit and 10 accuracy mastery. So stats, not anything crazy, right? So this is definitely reasonable to build to help you get through Faction Wars. Now let's go look at his kit, okay? Because he has a few different things that honestly I overlooked. I thought at first his big impactful thing would be his passive reflects 30% of the damage this champion receives back to the attacker. And obviously this pairs very well with his A3 ability, where basically he's placing a provoke. Now this is a 2-turn provoke, which not very many champions have that. Books up to 100% chance if you want to book it. Honestly, Quit said he didn't book it, only took him to what, level 50. So like I said before, don't over invest into these champions. Get by with like the bare minimum so you can invest in those champions who are going to help you with your speed runs, help you with more areas of the game. Now, if you're going to use him in other content, definitely invest in him. But if not, try to hold back. He has good aura, good for faction crypts. This provoke, very good. Also heals this champion by 20% of their max HP. 5-turn cooldown, so it's kind of long. But hey, Very solid ability. Now this A2 is actually pretty interesting if you think about it, okay? So attacks all enemies, 75% chance of placing a 30% decreased crit rate. Now, if you're looking at Arena and you're looking at your typical champion builds, 30% decreased crit rate, that's a impactful amount, right? But it's not anything drastic, right? So that brings someone who's 100% crit rate down to 70% crit rate, and they're still going to crit pretty often. You're not going to use them in the arena. But if you look at the waves in Faction Wars and any PvE content that I know of, to be honest, you'll notice a consistent theme. All these champions have 15% crit rate. So all these champions don't have gear on them. They just increase their base stats, but it doesn't seem their crit rate goes up. So if you have Balthus Druglord placing decreased crit rate by 30% on all the waves, they're going to have 0% crit rate, right? So let me know if you guys have used them for that. That may have helped me when I was going through the Faction Wars, because sometimes those unlucky crits can definitely wipe out some of your champions, especially if you're running level 50 champions. Making sure that you'll never really get crit is a very, very solid thing. Definitely, right? So 2 turns, 4-turn cooldown. If you get it booked, it's going to be up more consistently. But if not, just make him fast and he'll keep it up pretty often. Obviously, this A1 ability, 30% chance of placing a 50% decrease attack buff or debuff. Very good ability as well. So definitely a champion if you have him. If you need a good option, probably pretty good in a shield set as well. 18,000 base HP. It's a decent amount, especially when you compare it to like legendaries like Siphi, who's obviously very good in a shield set. 3,000 difference in the base HP. It's a decent amount, but hey, very good, very solid option in Balthus. I don't know how you say his name. The Druglord. The Druglord is probably pretty good in a shield set. So definitely a champion looking into for your Faction War pushing. Now, these 2 next champions I want to talk about, very useful and potential benefits for dungeon progression, okay? So Stitchbeast, both these champions are very similar. Stitchbeast, good or decent Fire Knight viability. So A1's attack enemy 2 times. A2 also attacks an enemy 2 times, places a weaken. And then A3 decreases the target's turn meter by 100%. Now, this alone is not going to be enough to keep the Fire Knight at bay, right? So you're going to have to bring other champions with turn meter decrease, but having this champion who you know, hey, every 4 turns, I'm going to have a 100% turn meter decrease. That's very, very helpful, especially if you're looking for consistent Fire Knight runs. This A1 that has a 2-hitter is definitely much better than somebody who has a single hit, right? Both his abilities are 2 hits, so maybe if you bring in an ally attack champion, counterattack, whatever it may be, he's going to get 2 hits each time he hits into that Fire Knight shield, which is definitely going to help you knock that shield down and keep it down with this ability. And his base speed's not that bad at level 60. Granted, if he's like level 50, 5-star fully ascended, he's probably not gonna, he may not have this base speed, so you may have to fully ascend him, fully level him up to 60 to get that base speed. But definitely a very solid option if you're struggling with Fire Knight. I know for a long time on my old account, I struggled with Fire Knight because I didn't have a Cold Heart. So I couldn't do the enemy max HP. I didn't have really good turn meter manipulation. I had Armiger, but him alone wasn't able to quite do it. Armiger plus Stitchbeast, I bet could do it very well, to be honest. The next champion is Lich, okay? Now, Lich is a champion I'm like 99% sure is part of the Rosin Fusion. This champion also has a very cool ability. First is A2, 3-turn cooldown when booked. Only 1 book there. If you can land it, perfect. A3, 5-turn cooldown, but books down to a 3-turn cooldown. Not a significant amount of books. I mean, I guess it's a decent amount, right? So we got 4, 9, 10 books. Okay, so 10 books, if it depends on where your count's at, but it may or may not be worth it. This champion you're gonna have to build for Rosin Fusion anyways, right? So getting him to 5-star fully ascended, it's something you're gonna have to do no matter what. So you might as well try to fit him into faction crypts. Ally defense 27% if you can. The support ability is pretty good. 60% increased defense buff on this champion for 2 turns. Heals this champion by 20% of their max HP. Decent for faction wars, but where I'm thinking this is actually really good is Spider, okay? Especially if you do like an enemy max HP strategy for Spider. Obviously, Spider stage 20, let's go take a look at that real quick, is something people get stuck on pretty often, right? Spider stage 20 is Spirit Affinity. So if it's Spirit Affinity, and you're bringing a Force Affinity champion like Lich against the Spider, he is going to be able to, or she, I don't know, I'm not picking sides here. This is, well, never mind. Basically, Force Affinity champion, he's going to be tanking those spiraling hits. He's going to have a good ability to help keep him alive, increase defense, plus a heal, 20% of their max HP, very solid. Decent base HP, well, good base HP, good base defense, decent base speed, and an A3 ability with a decreased speed, which is very, very good against a big spider, and decreases the target's turn meter by 100%. just does it. Doesn't have a chance to do it. You do need accuracy, but a very, very solid option as well. Defense-based champion as well. So you can build this champion with good defense, build this champion with good HP, make sure their speed's in check as well. And then you're gonna have a good spider tank who can also keep themselves alive. So while you're working on getting rosin, build this champion up and then just feed it once you get a team that doesn't require Lich to go through the spider. So a champion who is gonna be a part of the natural progression of account anyways. So if you can, you might as well go ahead and invest into him a little bit more, get use out of him. If you're struggling on stage 20 of spider, then yeah, you'll be good to go. And then once you get rosin, he can even tank the spider for you. So those are a few champions in the Undead faction. Honestly, actually, I missed one. This was actually a pretty important one. I had this one pulled up on the notepad by themselves, okay? So Doomscreech, I don't necessarily know if this champion's underrated, but this is a champion who I do want to make a more elaborate video on because I think he's a key part, especially with his A2 ability, in a lot of very interesting arena teams for players who may not have a ton of very good options. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 30%, places a 60% increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns. Book this down, 3-turn cooldown. That doesn't really matter for what we'll be using him for, but look at his upgraded version of him, I guess, armored version of himself. Seeker, turn meter increase, increase attack. So obviously you can tell this is basically the increased defense version of Seeker. Turn meter boost, very, very solid option for the arena. Opens up several different options for you to use, and I'm hopefully gonna have a video maybe coming out about that tomorrow, but we'll see, guys. Other than that, thank you all very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.